There is a subtle phenomenon that most people sense long before they can explain it. You may have noticed it in certain men who do not speak much, do not seek validation, and do not attempt to command attention. Yet, somehow, the room seems to register their presence anyway. Nothing dramatic happens. There is no display of dominance, no effort to impress, and no performance designed to be noticed. And yet, something feels different. This difference is often described as an aura, though not in a mystical or supernatural sense. It is not energy, charisma, or confidence, as those words are commonly understood. It is a psychological byproduct, an effect created when a man operates from internal alignment rather than external approval. Most people move through life broadcasting signals. They explain themselves, justify their choices, soften their edges, and adjust their behavior based on how they are being perceived. Their identity is reactive, shaped moment by feedback from others. This is not a flaw or a weakness. It is simply the default human pattern of social regulation. The Sigma male operates outside of this loop. He does not try to manage impressions, nor does he rush to be understood. He does not perform masculinity for approval, applause, or belonging. As a result, people around him are left without the familiar cues they rely on to quickly categorize others. This absence creates a mild psychological tension, not fear, not admiration, but curiosity. The Sigma male's presence is quiet, and a quiet presence often unsettles environments that are accustomed to constant noise, signaling, and explanation. What makes this difference truly striking is that it is not cultivated through techniques, tactics, or social strategies. It emerges naturally when a man becomes self-directed, internally governed, and no longer dependent on external reinforcement to regulate his sense of self-worth. From a psychological perspective, this creates a symmetry. When one person is emotionally self-contained and the other is not, the interaction subtly shifts. The Sigma male is not trying to extract validation, status, or advantage from the moment. He is simply present, grounded, and internally stable. This changes how others behave around him, often without them consciously understanding why. In this video, we will calmly examine the core distinctions between the Sigma male aura and the behavioral patterns most people unconsciously display, not as a comparison meant to elevate one above the other, but as a clear observation of how internal structure shapes external perception. There is nothing mystical here, only psychology, self-regulation, and the long-term effects of internal discipline. Point 1, emotional stillness versus emotional leakage. Most men are never taught emotional regulation, and this absence quietly shapes their entire inner life. Instead, they are shown two extremes, emotional suppression or emotional overexpression. Suppression teaches a man to push feelings down, to lock them away and pretend they do not exist. This creates internal pressure, a constant background tension that never truly resolves. Overexpression, on the other hand, releases emotion immediately and without filtering, creating volatility, unpredictability, and regret. Regulation sits between these extremes, and it is the rarest skill of all. Regulation creates stillness. Emotional stillness does not mean the absence of feeling, nor does it suggest emotional numbness. It means emotions are acknowledged, processed internally, and understood before they are expressed externally. The Sigma male understands this distinction, sometimes intuitively, sometimes through hard-earned experience. He has learned that immediate reaction is rarely power, and that clarity is born in pause. He does not rush to respond to provocation, because he understands the provocation feeds on urgency. He does not scramble to correct misunderstandings because he knows that those who matter will observe his consistency over time. He does not feel compelled to explain his emotional state because self-explanation often reveals insecurity rather than strength. This restraint creates a psychological vacuum around him. Humans are pattern-seeking creatures by nature. When emotional signals are chaotic, excessive, or inconsistent, people become uneasy and defensive. When emotional signals are calm, measured, and stable, people relax, but they also become more attentive. Silence paired with composure forces others to project, to interpret, and to fill in the gaps themselves. Emotional leakage represents the opposite condition. It occurs when inner tension spills outward unconsciously, revealing unresolved emotion through behavior rather than words. People who leak emotion often speak more than necessary, justify themselves prematurely, overreact to small triggers, or attempt to control perception through explanation. Their nervous system is broadcasting urgency, and urgency invites challenge. The Sigma male's stillness stands in direct contrast to this pattern. His nervous system is not signaling threat, desperation, or instability. From a biological standpoint, humans subconsciously attune to the nervous systems of others through tone, posture, breathing rhythm, and micro-movements. When someone remains calm under pressure, it signals safety, competence, and internal control. This is why the Sigma male is often perceived as grounded, even when he says very little. His body language, vocal pacing, and presence are aligned with his internal state. Over time, people either begin to mirror his calm or grow uncomfortable with their own inability to regulate themselves. In both cases, his emotional discipline quietly establishes psychological authority without a single word being forced into the moment. Point 2. Internal validation versus external confirmation. External validation is addictive because it offers a brief escape from uncertainty, a momentary silence to the inner question of, am I enough? Likes, praise, attention, and approval act like small emotional rewards, releasing short bursts of reassurance that temporarily stabilize the self. Yet the relief never lasts. Each affirmation fades quickly, requiring another hit, another confirmation, another audience. Over time, this cycle trains the mind to outsource self-worth, creating a subtle dependency where value is constantly negotiated in real time with others. The Sigma male becomes aware of this pattern and slowly steps away from it, not through rejection of people, but through the cultivation of internal validation. He begins to build self-trust by keeping promises to himself, honoring his own standards, and measuring progress against his long-term trajectory rather than immediate reactions. This shift does not express itself as arrogance or superiority. There is no need to inflate the ego when the foundation is solid. Instead, his sense of worth becomes private, grounded, and non-performative. He evaluates himself based on discipline, consistency, and alignment with his principles, not on applause. As this internal orientation strengthens, it subtly reshapes how he moves through the world. He does not over-explain his choices because he does not feel the need to justify his existence. He does not argue excessively because disagreement no longer feels like a threat to his identity. He listens more than he speaks, and when he speaks, there is no urgency behind his words. He does not chase outcomes that conflict with his values, even when those outcomes promise validation, status, or comfort. This creates a noticeable calm in his presence. Others feel it immediately. even if they cannot articulate why. Conversations with him feel less transactional because there is no hidden demand for agreement, admiration, or affirmation. There is no pressure to mirror his views or reinforce his self-image. Ironically, this absence of need generates respect. People sense that his self-concept is stable, and stability is rare in a world driven by comparison and reaction. Rare things are valued instinctively. Over time, others may find themselves seeking his opinion, not because he asserts authority, but because he does not chase it. His perspective carries weight precisely because it is not offered to gain influence. In stepping away from external validation, the Sigma male does not withdraw from the world. He simply stops bargaining with it. What remains is a quiet confidence rooted in self-approval, and that quietness speaks louder than any demand for attention ever could. Point 3. Selective energy versus constant availability. Most men move through life in a state of constant availability. They reply the moment a message appears. They engage in every conversation placed in front of them, and they invest their attention without first asking whether the exchange is meaningful or necessary. Over time, this pattern creates internal fatigue and external invisibility. When attention is given freely and endlessly, it loses its weight. The Sigma male understands this intuitively. He recognizes that time, energy, and attention are not infinite resources, but finite ones, and once spent carelessly, they cannot be recovered. He does not disappear to provoke curiosity, nor does he withhold himself as a tactic. His restraint is not a performance. It is a natural consequence of self-respect. He allocates his attention intentionally, guided by purpose rather than impulse. Because he is selective, he avoids the quiet resentment that builds in men who constantly give but feel unseen or unappreciated. Overextension, he knows, is the fastest path to burnout and emotional depletion. By limiting unnecessary engagement, he preserves mental clarity and emotional stability. Psychologically, people tend to assign greater value to what is not instantly accessible. This is not manipulation. It is a basic human response shaped by scarcity and perception. The Sigma male does not consciously use this dynamic to influence others. It emerges organically from his boundaries. He is not always available, but when he chooses to be present, his presence is complete. He listens without distraction. He speaks with intention. He does not multitask his attention or dilute it across meaningless interactions. This consistency creates a sense of reliability that words alone cannot build. At first, others may feel unsettled by his rhythm. They are accustomed to immediate replies, constant validation, and emotional availability on demand. His calm detachment can feel unfamiliar, even confusing. But with time, a shift occurs. People begin to sense that his absence is not indifference, and his presence is not performative, it is deliberate. They realize that when he shows up, it is because he chooses to, not because he feels pressured or obligated. This distinction changes how his attention is received. It feels grounded, steady, and real. His energy does not fluctuate with external demands, and because of that, it carries weight. The Sigma male's value is not created by scarcity alone, but by coherence. His inner discipline aligns with his outward behavior. He does not chase connection, nor does he avoid it. He simply meets life on his own terms, offering his attention where it matters and withdrawing it where it does not. In doing so, he protects his peace and quietly elevates his presence without ever needing to announce it. Point 4. Observation over opinion. Many men mistakenly equate intelligence with constant commentary, believing that Being sharp means always having something to say, always reacting, and always asserting an opinion. The Sigma male moves in the opposite direction. He understands that true intelligence begins with observation, not expression. Before forming conclusions, he watches. Before speaking, he listens. He recognizes that information reveals itself most clearly when people are not being interrupted, challenged, or guided toward a response. In silence, behavior becomes honest. People expose their motives, insecurities, and intentions not through what they claim, but through patterns of action, emotional shifts, and contradictions between words and behavior. The Sigma male pays attention to these details. He notices who changes tone when authority enters the room, who seeks validation through over-explaining, and who grows uncomfortable when not given immediate feedback. This observational posture makes him psychologically informed without requiring verbal dominance. He does not need to prove intelligence because he is accumulating understanding. While others speak to be seen, he watches to see clearly. This restraint is not passivity, it is discipline. It allows him to process situations without emotional noise, to separate signal from distraction. As a result, when he finally speaks, his words arrive with precision. They are concise, deliberate, and timed for maximum relevance. He does not fill space for comfort or ego. He speaks only when contribution matters. This scarcity of speech increases impact. People instinctively listen more closely because his voice is not diluted through overuse. Silence, when chosen intentionally, becomes a form of communication in itself. It signals confidence, self-control, and discernment. It communicates that he is not seeking approval, nor is he threatened by quiet moments. In social dynamics, others often project meaning onto his silence, assuming depth, strategy, or authority, where there may simply be patience and awareness. Yet the effect remains the same. His presence feels grounded. His words feel weighted. In contrast to those who speak constantly and are slowly ignored, the Sigma male allows anticipation to build naturally. When he speaks, it interrupts the noise rather than adding to it. This is why his statements are remembered while louder voices fade. He understands that intelligence is not measured by volume or frequency, but by accuracy and timing. By choosing observation over reaction and restraint over display, he positions himself as someone whose insight carries substance. In a world addicted to commentary, his silence becomes a distinguishing trait, and his words, when they come, land with undeniable force. Point 5. Comfort with solitude versus fear of disconnection. Solitude reveals the self in a way that no external validation ever can. Most people avoid being alone, not because they dislike silence, but because silence removes distraction. When there is nothing to numb the mind, unresolved thoughts rise to the surface. Doubts, regrets, unanswered questions, and unprocessed emotions. This exposure can feel uncomfortable, even threatening, which is why many fill their time with noise, relationships, or constant stimulation. The Sigma male takes a different path. He does not rush to escape this inner terrain. Instead, he learns to face it gradually, with patience and honesty. Over time, solitude stops feeling like isolation and begins to function as a controlled environment for self-understanding. It becomes a space where reflection replaces avoidance and clarity replaces confusion. In this space, he examines his reactions, his desires, and his fears without judgment, allowing them to lose their power through awareness. As this internal work deepens, desperation fades. The need to be seen, chosen, or validated weakens because his sense of identity no longer depends on external approval. He does not pursue relationships to escape emptiness or silence discomfort. He approaches connection from fullness, not lack. This distinction quietly reshapes his behavior. Because he is not afraid of being alone, he does not cling. He does not over-explain, over-invest, or tolerate situations that drain his self-respect. Disrespect, inconsistency, and misalignment stand out clearly to him, and he feels no internal pressure to negotiate his boundaries just to avoid solitude. This creates a calm, grounded confidence that does not need to announce itself. Others sense that his standards are not defensive or performative, but rooted in self-knowledge. He is not withholding, he is selective. Independence, when genuine, carries a psychological weight that people instinctively recognize. It signals emotional self-sufficiency, internal stability, and freedom from approval-seeking behavior. This kind of independence is not about rejecting others or romanticizing isolation. It is about choice. Over time, people begin to feel that his presence is intentional rather than necessary. He shows up because he wants to, not because he fears being alone. That subtle difference changes the way others relate to him. Conversations become more respectful, dynamics more balanced, and expectations more realistic. His value is not inflated by mystery or arrogance, but reinforced by consistency and self-possession. In a world where many are driven by avoidance and attachment, the Sigma male's comfort with solitude becomes a quiet signal of strength, depth, and emotional maturity, one that speaks without needing words. Point 6, consistency over performance. The most overlooked aspect of the Sigma male aura is consistency, because true strength is not something that switches on and off, depending on the audience. Many men perform confidence only when conditions favor them, adjusting their tone, posture, and beliefs based on who is present and what they hope to gain. The Sigma male does the opposite. He remains the same across environments, whether he is alone, observed, praised, or ignored. His tone is steady, his values are fixed, and his behavior follows an internal code rather than external pressure. This consistency creates a rare form of psychological alignment, where inner principles and outward actions are in complete agreement. People may not fully understand him, but they sense that nothing about him is artificial, that coherence is quietly calming. It signals stability in a world shaped by emotional volatility and shifting identities. Over time, this steadiness builds trust without effort. People know where he stands, even when he speaks very little. He does not posture for approval, nor does he adjust his identity to fit the room. Instead of excitement or drama, he becomes associated with reliability. And reliability, sustained over time, becomes the foundation of quiet respect. In closing, the Sigma male aura is not something that can be imitated convincingly. It emerges naturally when a man develops emotional regulation, internal validation, selective energy, observational awareness, comfort with solitude, and behavioral consistency. These traits are cultivated slowly, often through discomfort and introspection. The difference may feel shocking to those who rely on performance and external affirmation, but to the Sigma male, it feels natural, calm, grounded, sustainable.